कुमार स्वामी नायक गोंगो लुगु लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे।
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन।
Good evening, Fiji. In this bulletin, Fiji confirms new COVID-19 case in quarantine. Government will continue to create jobs, says PM. And race begins for Sidelpa leadership.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Jackie Smith.
A 61-year-old man who arrived in Fiji a week ago has been tested positive for COVID-19 in quarantine, raising our border quarantine cases to 7. The man had travelled from Sacramento in the United States, transiting through Auckland and arriving in Nadi on flight NZ952 last week. Prime Minister Vurenge Bainimarama confirms the Health Ministry is working around the clock to ensure all border quarantine cases are contained. Koroi Tandulala with the details.
The man tested positive after developing mild symptoms in a government-designated border quarantine facility in Nadi. The Prime Minister says Fijians cannot lag when it comes to taking measures against COVID-19.
The good thing about these new cases we are recording is that it's all quarantined. This means that there is no community transmission, but we cannot let our guard down and continue practicing the measures announced by the Ministry of Health. This is also the reason why we need those that have a smartphone device to download the Care Fiji app.
This new border quarantine case brings the total number of COVID cases for Fiji since the first case was reported in March to 28. 10 have been border quarantine cases reported since July 6th. As announced last month, there was 1 death and 2 have since recovered, leaving 7 active border quarantine cases. They are all in stable condition. The Prime Minister also highlighting today that despite the new cases of community transmission in New Zealand, they are still in discussion about a possible Bula bubble.
Still on. Nothing changes that. We're just waiting for New Zealand to come on board with that one. Okay.
The Prime Minister is pleading with all Fijians who have smartphones to download the Care Fiji app to assist in contact tracing. The Ministry of Health confirms that border quarantine and infection prevention controls are upheld and there is no risk to Fijian public from this new border quarantine case. Koroi Tandulala, FBC News.
The Ministry of Health has not yet recognized any medical institution overseas that can certify quarantine outside our borders. Permanent Secretary for Health Dr. James Fong says there has not been any concrete negotiations with Australia and New Zealand on this issue. Kelly Vadala reports the only recognized institutions for now are the Ministry of Health and the Republic of Fiji Military Forces.
Every person entering Fiji still must go through the normal COVID-19 protocols, which is testing and 14 days mandatory quarantine.
Because we have not recognized any institution, nobody is eligible for quarantine in Australia or New Zealand. They have to all quarantine in Fiji. Still, the quarantine in Fiji is what we recognize.
The PS says the recognition of outside quarantine still requires some bilateral negotiations at the top level.
The problem is that we haven't had any concrete negotiations with Australia and New Zealand for us to be able to have a institution that we can recognize and accredit to give us that we can accredit as people who can have the authority to tell us that the quarantine period served in their country was safe.
Health Minister Dr. Feremi Wanganembete says nothing has changed despite New Zealand now in lockdown after the announcement of its latest COVID-19 cases.
They follow the protocols, so it's 14 days test and once that's negative they go home.
Dr. Wanganembete says the pandemic is an evolving situation and they continue to make necessary observations. New Zealand's current situation only raises Fiji's awareness level and the need to strengthen our COVID-19 protocols. Kelly Vathala, FBC News.
Prime Minister Vurenge Bainimarama has raised concerns about the recent spate of fires. There have been 44 fires in the last 5 months, causing a loss of $10 million. Edwin Nund reports.
According to the Prime Minister, it's the vulnerable in society who are most at risk from fires.
The people most at risk are not those living in modern homes and houses with expensive appliances and insurance to protect them, but the most vulnerable within our society, older people, those who are living alone, and those whose behaviors, lifestyles, or housing puts them at greater risk.
I have noticed in the last couple of weeks, every week there is a fire. Every week. And sometimes in a week, we lose about 3 to 4 buildings.
There were 1,375 incidents in 2019, which consisted of 140 building or home fires. 30% of these were due to electrical faults.
I want to see much deeper collaboration between the National Fire Authority, local governments, and other local service providers to prevent fires and improve our ability to respond to them when they occur.
The government of Fiji and the Fijian public, they expect even more from NFA, because for NFA, the error tolerance limit must be 0.
Businesses and homeowners have been urged to have their property certified for fire protection. There were 2,648 ambulance runs last year for emergencies. Edwin Nand, FBC News.
Prime Minister Vorengen Bainimarama has assured the government will create jobs by enhancing services. Bainimarama says they're in a position to create jobs by building new police stations, health centres, courthouses, government offices and other essential services. He says this has always been the plan, but it has now become vital at a time when many Fijians are losing their jobs.
It was always necessary, but especially now, when it means jobs for Fijians at a time when we desperately need those jobs. There are many hard-working Fijians who have skills, and our skills our country needs to give us the infrastructure we need. Government is uniquely able to honor those hard-working Fijians by giving them the opportunity to work and earn their living.
The Ministry of Forestry is collaborating with the Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited and other hardwood entities to grant forest certification to timber processing companies. Permanent Secretary Pene Mbale-Nambuli says the international standard certification will ensure local hardwood or timber are marketable overseas. Chasaina Nunga has more.
Forest certification has been a long-standing issue the ministry and local hardwood companies have been trying to address.
Government through the Ministry of Forestry is trying to help Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited to achieve forest certification. And this is vitally important because at this juncture when we need economic activity, our mahogany plantations are actually mature and ready to be harvested. What we need is to open up the markets, and these niche, high-value, high-end markets, they actually would, the majority of them would like to have certified products.
At present, FHCL exports its harvested mahogany to Australia, New Zealand, as well as the United States of America. General Manager Shakil Maharaj says the certification will open up new markets, particularly in Europe.
We have already entered into a niche market. It's the Europe market for Fiji hardwood mahogany decking. So that's a big opening market for Fiji hardwood for supplying decking in niche market. We lost that market for quite some time, but now we have managed to secure the confirmed orders for next 5 months from the niche market in Europe.
Fiji Pine Limited is the lone timber entity that has ISO international certification and has helped them enter new markets in the Asian countries. The ministry will use the same experience from the Fiji Pine certification to guide itself towards granting similar standards to Fiji hardwood. Chosayena Nunga, FBC News.
5 prominent Social Democratic Liberal Party members have thrown their names into the ring to contest for the position of party leader. 4 current MPs, including incumbent leader Sitiveni Rambuka, and 2 former MPs are among those who will vie for the position. And in another interesting development, Suva lawyer Filimoni Vosarongo is amongst those who have applied to contest for the deputy leader position. Another man also making a run for the deputy position is current MP Niko Nawaikula. Koroi Tandalala reports.
Staying silent and not wanting to talk about it, but FBC News understands applicants for party leader position include Sitiveni Rambuka, Viliame Avoka, Ro Filipe Tuisawau, Aseri Randrondro, Pio Tambaiwalu, and Ratu Chonet Navakamodea. But one man who is talking is vocal party member Niko Nawaikula, who who claims things have settled down within Sodelpa, and this has given him a sigh of relief.
Truly happy the way we're going now. Was really worried. We were going to split up. Personally, I made a few visits to our current leader, Mr. Sitiveni Ramuka, begging him to do everything to put the party together, so to speak, so that it doesn't split, and it has happened. And I think that has come with God's blessings, and that is the way forward.
Nawaikula is up again for the deputy party leader position against opposition whip Linda Tambuya, Felimoni Vosarongo, Aseri Randrondro, Pio Tambaiwalu, and Moses Mbulitavu. The Vakonrave native says while he wants to be number 2, he will support whoever will be appointed for party leadership role.
You see the challenge that has been there all the time to make Sodelpa truly inclusive and multiracial. But my application is simply to say that if I am called upon, I will say yes. So it means that whoever is taken that position, I'll fully support. I'll give all my experience, my expertise, and knowledge to support whoever is picked.
FBC News has sent questions to Party General Secretary Emelendo Tuturanga, who has not yet responded, while others we contacted did not want to speak or there was no answer. The applications for the post of party leader and deputy leader closed yesterday, with the Sodelpa leader and deputy leader to be named at the party's annual general meeting in November. Koreitan Tulala, FBC News.
Up ahead, new contract to help farmers find markets. And stage set for first ever virtual concert.
Baik tu Dendi mereka tahu, Radio Fiji बहुत Radio Fiji रोज सुनता हूँ.
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
The search for markets to sell their produce will now be a thing of the past for Matandono organic farmers in Namangu Mangua Serua. The Agro-Marketing Authority stepped in yesterday to help the farmers find markets following a contractual agreement. Sainiani Boiler reports.
These farmers had no market to sell their produce, and most of these used to go to waste.
We had no market to sell our produce because there is a lot of farmers in this area. We took a produce to the Singatoka market and a very few was sold because there was many. So this initiative by the ministry and the AMA will greatly help us.
We are so fortunate that we have been part of the agreement with the AMA and the ministry. So we had an agreement yesterday and we are starting now. We are planting more than 600 dollar plants for export and more in the coming weeks.
While launching the contractual agreement yesterday, Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy urged the farmers to focus more on export quality crops as the demand is high.
You want to target export crops. I want you to also start thinking about export crops. What are these export crops? Dalo, cassava, of course, duruka, bongo chilies, squash. Something which we really haven't put in our minds to it.
Dr. Reddy says it's also crucial for farmers to provide the best quality produce so Fiji can secure more markets overseas. Sainiani Boiler, FBC News.
The man who killed his de facto wife by pouring benzene on her before setting her on fire has been sentenced to mandatory life imprisonment. Chekope Naimawi was sentenced by the Suva High Court this morning. The incident happened last January following a home-brewed drinking session between the couple and their friends in Kalambu, Nasinu. The couple argued during the drinking session, and Naimawi assaulted the victim, Maraya Tala, several times by hitting her head with a bucket used for mixing the homebrew. Naimawi later took Maraya to their home, where he poured benzene on her and set her alight. Naimawi then rushed her to the hospital, where a few days later she succumbed to burns over 45% of her body. The High Court judge has set 18 years as a minimum term to be served. 5 police officers charged with assaulting Inoke Langivere from Nangia village in Wainimbuka Tailevu have pleaded not guilty. The alleged incident happened in April. Sevenaya Narongi, Kameli Tukana, Mafua Korosaya, Inoke Nangata, and Chokaveti Rambuku appeared in the Suva High Court this morning. It is alleged the four punched and kicked Langi Vere before Sevenaya Narongi threw him off the Nangia Bridge. They're charged with act with intent to cause grievous harm, assault causing actual bodily harm, and common assault. Female officer Chokaveti Rambuku faces an additional charge of conspiracy to defeat justice and interfering with the witnesses. The case will be called again on the 15th of next month. Pacific Unite will be the first ever virtual concert in the Pacific, aiming to bring together leaders and people across the region to work together with the rest of the world in the fight against COVID-19. The concert will be televised and digitally streamed this Saturday, paying tribute to essential workers across the Pacific for what they've done so far to fight the pandemic and save lives. Lena Reese with the details.
The UN Pacific Resident Coordinator says the Pacific Unite virtual concert is a call through music and art for continued solidarity in facing this unprecedented challenge together.
Music and dance is the essence of this region. And if those people around the world have something to show and to celebrate and to unite themselves, or celebrate Pacific times too.
UN AIDS Director Renata Ram says the concert has generated a lot of interest from artists and special acts, all wanting to be part of the event.
Choosing the final list of artists was a very tough decision for us to make, but we had only limited spots to offer. And just to note, the Pacific truly has amazing talent.
The concert has been organized by UN Pacific and will air at 7 p.m. this Saturday on FBC2 and at 7:30 p.m. on FBC TV. It will be hosted by Auntie Tala from the Laughing Samoans, featuring artists from Fiji and 12 other Pacific Island countries. Lena Reese, FBC News.
And Whitney is here now with the latest from the business world.
Thanks, Jackie. In business tonight, 200 million ADB loan to help in COVID response. And in growing Fiji, work on Queen Elizabeth Drive progresses well. Stay with us.
Pula nadang ko aproslan ngarse, go erkraki. Do televe ono barong na Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
A loan agreement of over $420 million was signed between the Ministry of Economy and the Asian Development Bank today. The loan will support Fiji's long-term economic development plan and a short-term response for COVID-19. This is the final phase of the sustained private sector-led growth reform program aimed at driving economic growth through investment and improving management of public finances. ADB's South Pacific Sub-Regional Director Masayuki Tachiri says the bank will provide further support to Fiji. Economy Minister Aya Said Kium says this will help improve liquidity.
It will help us in respect of getting the much needed funding, in particular in propping up our foreign reserves and also improving liquidity within the system itself too.
Britain's economy shrank by a record 20.4% in the second quarter this year, when the pandemic lockdown was tightest. This is the most severe contraction reported by any of the world's major economies, and a wave of job losses is expected to hit in the next few months. We now join Sanifa from HFC Bank with the latest from the money market.
Let's look at the foreign exchange market today. The Australian Bureau of Statistics released a positive jobs report for July earlier today. It showed more than 114,000 jobs were added in July against the expected 40,000, while July's unemployment rate of 7.5% also beat expectations. The battle against the virus also continues across the Tasman Sea, with New Zealand's central bank considering more monetary stimulus if there is a resurgence in local coronavirus infections and renewed lockdowns. Meanwhile, the US dollar nursed losses against most of its peers today amid fading hopes for a compromise between Republicans and Democrats over additional economic stimulus. Although investors have swung between optimism and pessimism over the stall package, Some argued that U.S. economic recovery depends on reaching an agreement between the battling political parties. The pandemic continues to impact U.S. economic recovery, with almost 5.2 million cases in the U.S. alone as of today, and millions unemployed. That's all from HFC Bank for now. Vinaka.
Looking at today's local exchange rates as set this morning, once again the Fiji dollar showed itself on the rise against major currencies such as the Chinese yuan, the US dollar and the Japanese yen. However, it slipped against currencies such as the Aussie, the Kiwi, the Kina and the Euro. Looking at commodities, oil rose almost $1, remaining around the $42 a barrel mark. Gold went back on the rise, hitting $1,935 per ounce, and silver continued to rise at $25.84 an ounce. The new Nasese Bridge, once completed, will be safer for both pedestrians and motorists. Fiji Roads Authority Chief Executive Jonathan Moore says work is progressing well and expected to be completed in the next 18 months. The FRA has reclaimed part of this land to accommodate the new bridge. Moore says other major rehabilitation associated with construction of the bridge is also progressing.
The Nasese Bridge is ongoing. You can see the movement out into the sea. We've reclaimed part of the land there to put the abutments in for the new bridge. The reason for that is that we want to make sure that the bridge is safe. Currently, the bridge is too narrow, and it's on a very sharp bend. So we want to make it a more easily used bridge. We want to put a footpath in there, so we want it to be wider and in the right alignment.
And that's it from Business Tonight. We now join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thanks, Whitney, and good evening in Sports Tonight. Some teams may miss Fairbrother Challenge. And bar football change training time to suit game plan. This and more coming up.
My name is Neha and I'm from Kadavi. And Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Nanroga, Suva and Naita Siri may still have a chance to win the Fairbrother Trophy this year. Even though the three teams have already lost in challenge matches, they may get another shot at the title later during the season, while other teams could miss the opportunity altogether. Aquila Dama explains.
Some teams may not get the chance to challenge the Fairbrother Sullivan Trophy this year.
According to what happens, some teams may challenge twice, and some teams may not even get a challenge. But the fact is that it adds a bit of spice to the competition, and that's what the Fiji Rugby Union had wanted to do.
The 2020 competition format is similar to the Ranfurly Shield in New Zealand, where the title is on the line when the champion plays on their home ground.
We noted that teams, when they know that they are going to play the holder, in terms of preparation and everything just lifts up another level.
The new Skipper Cup competition format is supported by the unions.
The new format came from the unions. It was passed through the special general meeting in December of 2019, so it just increases the game time of all our players. And in it we have incorporated the Fairbrother challenges. So
if Namosi loses the Fairbrother to Lautoka next week, then Suva will be the first challenger for the Maroons because they're hosting the capital city side at Churchill Park a week later. However, if Namosi wins against Lautoka, then Nandrunga will challenge the champions next because according to the draws, Namosi's next opponent at home after Lautoka are the Stallions. Aquila Dama, FBC Sports.
Elite players in the Skipper Cup competition are undergoing a series of high-performance unit programs in preparation for international matches. Organized by the Fiji Rugby Union, HPU extended squad members will be screened on functional movements, body composition and strength level ahead of the Pacific Nations Cup in October. Caroline Itavi has more.
Fiji Rugby Union will be conducting tests to set a benchmark on the players' fitness level.
It's good that we've
brought the boys in. We see where they are at, and also preparing them for international level competition, which is of much higher level. We've been putting GPS in our players as well, targeted players in all the teams over the last 2 weekends. We'd like to continue to do that.
Suva players like Elia Dhanakaivata, Absalom Evota, and Enele Malele are some of the notable inclusions in the HPU extended squad. With these players focused on the HPU program, Suva manager Nemani Tuifangalele says this will give some of their younger players game time.
Yesterday we've been told that the PNC is coming up, so if all our players from the current batch are included in the PNC, we want players that are other players that are there to try and fit in.
Suva is tagging itself as underdogs as they prepare to meet Tailevu in round 4 of the Skipper Cup competition.
At Tailevu, we had played a pre-Skipper Cup warm-up match. They have a very strong forward. As I've said, they have young backliners, and they will try to match up with our backline.
Tailevu will host Suva at Ratudakambau Park in Osorio on Saturday at 3 p.m. Karleni Tavi, FBC Sports.
The Priceline Pharmacy Bar players have been urged to give it their all, but also have fun in their Punja's Battle of the Giants semi-final clash against Delta One Automotive Repairs Rewa. Bar coach Ronil Kumar has adjusted their training regime to better prepare for conditions at Churchill Park. Felipe Naikaso has more.
Training under the scorching sun, the bar side prepping from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The same time they will take the field against Rewa this weekend.
Just as you can say, we decided to train it too so we can adapt to the weather and the system that we're going to play. So the boys really feel the heat on the previous game we played. So we decided to train it too.
Bar managed to scrape through the group stages with a 1-0 win, a draw and a loss. However, the side has identified the areas they need to fix.
Rewa is a good team, good side. Like they're really performing well. They are a good structured team. So it's all about football. It's better team we win, better preparation.
2018 was the last time the Men in Black lifted the BOG title, and striker Sanela Wangani the Cow believes they can do the job.
I believe in my boys, and I think we'll give our best, and the trophy is coming down to Bar.
Bar will play Rewa at 2 p.m. in the first semi-final at Lotoka's Churchill Park this Saturday. Felipe Naikaso, FBC Sports.
The Flow Valves Island Accommodation Suva football side remains steadfast in its campaign to end its 25-year drought at the Battle of the Giants. Suva reached the finals in 2018 where they lost 2-0 to Ba and lost 1 to BOG in 1995. The injury-stricken capital side remains optimistic though as they prepare for Saturday's semi-final against all-in-one builders Nandi. Karlaini Tabi has more.
Christopher Wasasala, Kelvin Naidu, Patrick Taronga and Irsefo Veravo are nursing injuries and are doubtful for the semi-final clash.
Christopher and Veravo and all those guys are going to make it. I hope they were going to make it, but they're not. The physio said they'll be ruled out by tomorrow, and Kelvin is a new injury in the new injury list.
But this has not hindered the capital side's quest to become the new champion of Fiji's prestigious football title.
So, you know, everybody wants to win the BOG, and we Suva, we've been trying for the last 4 years. We've been knocking on the finals, and we always get knocked out. We are working very hard to win it this year.
To tackle a mighty team like Suva, maintaining possession is crucial for the jet setters.
Keeping possession, I think we need to keep possession for a longer period to create opportunities.
Delta One Automotive Repairs Rewa will play Priceline Pharmacy Bar in the first BOG semi-final at 2 p.m. on Saturday at Lotoka's Churchill Park, while Suva take on Nandi at 4 p.m. Karlini Tavi, FBC Sports.
The Vodafone Futsal Inter-District pools have been drawn with two newcomers, Enriqueti and Lamy, to feature in next weekend's tournament. Defending champions Suva head Pool A with Lautoka, Enriqueti and Lamy, while Pool B features Nandi, Tapua, Rewa and Tailevu Naitasiri. Tali Materakula reports.
The tournament will feature 8 teams including newcomers from the north.
We are proud to say that
from the north, this is the first time that Raketi has qualified. They are doing marvelously well on the scene.
FIGFA Chief Executive Muhammad Yusuf says the association is keen to develop futsal.
FIGFA is placing a lot of emphasis on futsal because in FIFA there's a lot of competition being organized within all confederation in terms of senior futsal, youth futsal for girls and boys.
Yusuf adds the sport will benefit the development of football as a whole.
We want to tap into that funding to allow us to develop the game of football through futsal. Futsal improves the individual player's ability to play in a short space, in a crowded space, and a lot of hard work is needed.
The Vodafone Futsal IDC kicks off at the Vodafone Arena in Suva next Friday and runs through to Sunday. Tali Materkula, FBC Sports.
In today's Play of the Day, a treat from the NBA. That's it from Sports Tonight.
Hi, Bula. I'm Selai from Nandi. I love Gold FM, only the classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.
And Angie joins you now with the latest in weather.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather World. A good deal with sunshine today. It was very pleasant. The great part is that we are nearing the weekend, and with this type of weather, we should be all good. Now, taking a closer look to the west, it was bright, but clouds started to build up around 3 p.m. without any rain. Eastwards from Peck Harbor to Suva, black clouds building up all day after some sight of sunshine, and up north, few showers were short-lived. It was still sunny and cloudy with very little wind and no rain. At sea, southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, moderate to rough seas. Now turning to the tides, low tide at 7:43 p.m. with high tide at 2:06 a.m. Sunrise at 6:26. For tomorrow, not a lot of change in the weather. We will have similar conditions as today. Tomorrow's temps, Lambasa will have 32 degrees, or it might shoot up during the day. Ba will be cool overnight at 19 degrees. And looking further on to Saturday, it will be comfortable with cool night. That's all the weather news from my end. Have a wonderful evening. It's back to Jackie.
Thanks so much for that, Angie. In Fijian Pulse tonight, we asked, should RealB be equipped with more powers to prosecute bogus agents?
Yes, because they are robbing people.
Yes, I agree with the government that the other real estate should be given powers to prosecute others. People should not be robbed.
Well, I think they should, otherwise bogus agents will continue to thrive illegally.
Definitely. I mean, they're the first line of defense against people like that, so I reckon they should be given some type of authority to prosecute them or at least investigate them.
Recapping the main stories for tonight, Fiji confirms new COVID-19 case in quarantine. Government will continue to create jobs, says PM, and race begins for SEDELPA leadership. Now for these stories and others, tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. Our poll question we're asking, are you happy with the lifting of the Kawakawa and Donu ban? Visit our FBC website to answer. And today's shot of the day, it is again from the Jet Set Town, sent in by Shalen Prasad. Remember to send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj, via Facebook page and our Twitter page at FBC_news. That's your news for tonight. Until tomorrow, stay safe, Fiji. Bye for now.
FM, number 2 NSR.
Bula FM, number 2 NSR.